Chapter 51. Garrett wasn't particularly surprised to reach the mental level required for a mage apprentice, after all. He had managed to cast a healing spell, which by priest standards at the very least would classify him as an apprentice. Though the powers differed, the mental strength required to cast spells should be somewhat similar. But the world perceived through mental power earth, water, fire, and air was that his own perception, or was it the world as understood by the mages according to the basic meditation? Born in modern China and raised under its flag, Garrett found it hard to accept that this world was composed of earth, water, fire, and air. He had at least studied medical physics, the four fundamental forces: strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, electromagnetic force, gravitational force, unifying the first three into one interaction: geometric optics, wave optics, special relativity, quantum mechanics. He had scored 93 on that, at least, even though he promptly forgot everything after the exam. But now, thanks to crossing over, he could remember it all again, as the memories of textbooks from his previous life came flooding back. Definitions, theorems, formulas, hypotheses surged forth, leaving Garrett feeling dizzy, nauseated, and almost ready to throw up. The meditation environment shook intensely. Quickly dispersing the textbooks, he regained his composure. When he once again dispersed his mental strength to observe the surroundings, Garrett was astonished to find that the world his mental strength perceived had changed. Above him stretched a pitch-black starry sky, stars shining brilliantly, somehow linked to the ground beneath his feet. While the four primary elements seemed to remain, they were no longer as distinct as before. The boundaries between fire and wind, fire and water, had blurred slightly. So, was this meditation environment the world he perceived or the world he understood? Garrett felt perplexed. Fortunately, these changes didn't affect him. The enhancement feedback to his mental strength within the meditation environment remained unaffected by these alterations. So, for now, he decided to let it be. Setting aside his doubts, Garrett calmed his mind and began exercising his mental strength, following the methods outlined in the basic meditation. He meditated until his head slightly throbbed before collapsing on the bed, closing his eyes. He had no intentions of reviewing the vocabulary list he had copied during the day. Lack of sleep affects cerebrospinal fluid flow, causing the accumulation of amyloid proteins produced by brain cells, increasing the risk of Alzheimer's. Not something he wanted. Who knew if an increase in mental strength could replace the function of brain cells? What if it couldn't? Upon waking from his slumber, Garrett's eyes lit up as he flipped through the notes he had made yesterday. He remembered everything he copied, not a single word forgotten. Learning meditation had improved his mental strength, and there was this advantage: his pace in memorizing vocabulary could pick up again. He could learn magic sooner. Filled with such joy, Garrett copied books in the Mage Tower with a slightly lighter demeanor, however. Increasing his writing speed wasn't that simple. Despite his efforts, he managed only 5 progress in a day. Oh. Gelman the mage had given him a task to copy 2 books. Calculating this, the progress halved instantly to just 2.5. No sense of accomplishment. Carrying his backpack, rubbing his wrists, he staggered out after a few steps. He suddenly halted. Elliot the mage leaned against the upward stairs, tossing and catching a small bag in his hand, grinning as he looked at Garrett. "How's the copying going?" "Too slow," Garrett replied truthfully, honestly. His current writing speed seriously hindered his mental pace. If it were only memorization, he might have completed the vocabulary in 10 days, however. Copying it all down, he couldn't finish in 20 days. "You've got to push harder. The teachers are waiting," Elliot encouraged seriously before turning to leave. Though he looked serious, for some reason, Garrett felt like the guy was enjoying his predicament. It struck him suddenly. "Mr. Elliot, do the mages urgently need this?" "What do you mean?" Elliot halted in his tracks. His response was as quick as if he had been waiting for that question. Garrett immediately caught up. "If it's urgent, I have a way that might speed up the copying, but I need your help." He intentionally paused here, gazing expectantly at Elliot, who remained silent. Elliot finally raised an eyebrow. "What are you planning?" "Get more people to copy. No, not that. Are you planning to stay here copying day and night? Let me tell you, that won't work. You're not a mage apprentice. You're not allowed to stay in the tower indefinitely. Not that either. What then? Stop beating around the bush? Spit it out. Garrett struggled to suppress a smile. This Mr. Elliot was quite competitive. He seemed to enjoy guessing things on his own. Maybe all mages were like this, exceedingly confident in their intellect. He lowered his head, adopting a respectful expression, seeking advice. Mr. Elliot, do you know a spell for duplicating books? There is. Why? What do you plan to do? Good. There was one. Garrett looked directly at Elliot and explained confidently. I'd like to ask for your help to duplicate studies in magical script. Then, I'll cut the pages, arrange them alphabetically, stick them back in order, and once that's done, you can duplicate it again. That should fulfill Gelman's request. Elliot fell silent for a moment, then another. Suddenly, he burst into laughter, reaching out. Great idea. That'll cost you 10 gold coins. Ha! Garrett was dumbfounded. He wanted me to pay? Elliot looked at Garrett, amused by his stunned expression. Employing a spell requires compensation, didn't you know? The material cost for the copying spell, paper and ink. I'll waive that considering you're copying for the Mage Tower O, and I'll waive the consultation fee for your earlier question 2-2 casting of copying spells. I'll give you a discount, 10 gold coins total pay up, and I'll cast it immediately. Garrett couldn't find the words. Yesterday, when Elliot cast the language comprehension spell, he did it out of his own laziness without asking for payment. But now that Garrett was asking for assistance, it was perfectly natural to pay in games. Speeding up construction also requires spending money. The problem was, 10 gold coins were half of his current wealth. Trading it for 10 days to half a month's time seemed like a terrible deal in terms of cost effectiveness. Kid, you're trying to save time, aren't you? Don't rush. Slowly copy. Learn studies in magical script thoroughly. It'll benefit you. Elliot the mage departed, laughing heartily. Chapter 52. Garrett couldn't take shortcuts this time. He had to patiently spend 2 days diligently copying books. On the third day, as he made his way to the Mage Tower again, before he could even rein in his horse in front of it, he heard a familiar sound. Boom! It was still on the 4th floor of the Mage Tower. The same window, the figure in robes dancing, flying out in a parabolic arc. Garrett. This time, he rode much slower, arriving at the landing spot. Sure enough, it was Elliot, wobbling and descending, grumbling all the while. You little rascal, resorting to blasting when words fail. Aren't you afraid of blowing yourself up? Oh, why are you here? Mr. Elliot. Garrett looked at him helplessly. I came to see if you needed help. Elliot wanted to tell him to scram. Last time he flew out of the Mage Tower, it was only with Garrett's help that he returned. Otherwise, who knows how long he would have had to hop on one foot at this moment, unable to voice harsh words. He grumbled as he struggled to get up and walked away. He didn't cause trouble, but trouble didn't spare him. A clang from the 4th floor of the Mage Tower, a window pushed open, a young lad popped his head out, golden hair shining, shouting in a peculiar tone. If you've got guts, come up here. Elliot glanced up, remained silent, and kept walking with his head down. Garrett accompanied him, circling a quarter of the way around. As the golden hair of the youth disappeared from sight, Garrett asked softly, Couldn't win? Who said I couldn't? Elliot's voice rose suddenly. That brat and I are on the same level. How could I not win? Garrett remained silent. Elliot walked a few more steps, slumped his shoulders, sighed. Just a little bit more. Humph. That kid comes from a prestigious family, had the best meditation methods since childhood, stronger mental power than me. Just a bit more, and I could cast 4 spells like him. Meditation methods? Garrett's heart skipped a beat. He seized the chance to ask, what kind of meditation methods are better? Kid, trying to gain an advantage again? Elliot raised an eyebrow at him without waiting for Garrett to lower his head in repentance. He sighed. Since you bothered to come and get me, I'll tell you. It's not really a secret anyway. With your mental power, becoming a mage is just a matter of time. These things aren't hard to know. Garrett immediately perked up his ears. The mage Elliot slowly explained. Listen, kid, meditation has 3 parts: core, shell, and threads. The core is shaping a mental core. The more it resembles yourself, the better. That way it can support your physical body. The shell is forming an exterior shell. The better its shape, the more it can attract and filter useful forces for you, while also resisting outside impacts. Threads teach you how to extend your mental power, perceive the world, and influence it. Good meditation techniques have unique skills in these 3 aspects. Ordinary mages either use the book Basic Meditation or learn from a teacher, exchange with the Magic Council. It sounded like fundamental theoretical knowledge. Garrett was fully focused, but just as he wanted to listen more, Elliot's voice paused, and he stopped talking. Was that it? Or was the next part for a fee? Garrett hurriedly asked. Mr. Elliot, about shaping the mental core to resemble oneself, does it mean every detail should be as similar as possible? Yeah. Elliot sighed. But who can do that? Features, limbs, a few bones, where are the organs placed? It's tough to get those right. Even the detailed parts, I'm not sure. Why do you ask? In the morning light, in front of the mage tower, Garrett stood straight, holding the horse's reins, a confident smile playing on his lips. I think I might know how the details of shaping the mental core should be. You! Elliot's eyebrows shot up. He grabbed Garrett, rushing outside, dragging him until they were near the stable before letting go. What do you know? You don't even know how to meditate. I meditated last night, Garrett insisted. He shrugged off Elliot's pull, sidestepping a pile of horse dung. Yesterday afternoon, you cast language proficiency for me. I used that time to memorize the basic meditation from the bookshelf. I tried it when I got home. I first built the mental core according to the human body framework in the book, then adjusted the details according to my own understanding. After the adjustments, I felt my mental power became much more solid. Elliot frowned. He stared fixedly at Garrett, leaning forward unconsciously, fists clenched. He looked as if his eyes could shoot knives to dissect Garrett and see his mental core. Garrett stood firm, letting him look. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Suddenly, Elliot jolted, eyes as if waking from a dream. He stepped back, staring at Garrett with a new gaze, exhaling deeply. Yes, you're a healer. You already know what the human body looks like. You know, Elliot murmured, stuttering, a myriad of thoughts churning in his mind, ordering, coercing, enticing, any means. Really, after all, Garrett had just started learning magic, didn't understand anything, and couldn't even produce 10 gold coins. Give him a little benefit, or as he requested, help him cast the copying spell a few times. He'd surely spill the beans. If afraid of being exposed, just tell the teacher about the meditation. Everyone benefits. Surely they could keep the secret together. No knowledge comes without a price, and meditation, something so foundational to a mage's power, its value even exceeded many spells. In the mage tower, spells from levels 1 to 3 were all openly available to the mages inside. However, regarding meditation, except for the introductory basic meditation book, not a single word about the other techniques could be found. That was a price he couldn't afford. He stared at Garrett, torn between conflicting thoughts. Trying to obtain the meditation technique through some means would be easy, but aside from the fact that the other was a healer, someone who had just stepped into the realm of magic like him, it wasn't right to take advantage in such a way. Elliot's sense of morality and adherence to principles didn't allow him to do such a thing. After hesitating for a while, gritting his teeth, Elliot turned and left, observing the human body in the way healers do, then adjusting the mental core based on those observations. Just this single approach, a unilaterally proclaimed effective approach, was worth him giving up everything he had. Even if Garrett was willing to tell him more, he couldn't offer something equivalent in exchange. The young mage hurried away, his black robe billowing, almost creating a wave. Garrett stood behind, smiling slightly, watching the black-robed mage who had always looked after him hurriedly leave. When the mage was 3 to 5 steps away, Garrett called out loudly, "Hey, no time." The person ahead rudely replied, not even turning back, as if afraid of regretting it. Garrett chuckled even more. "Don't try it yourself, I'll tell you how." With a thud, Elliot tripped and fell flat on the ground. Chapter 53. Elliot, the mage, scrambled to his feet. Looking disheveled, a trickle of blood stained his face, and his mage robe was smeared with a hefty lump of horse dung. Oblivious to his condition, he locked eyes with Garrett, took a deep sigh after a while, and said, "Garrett, thank you, but I can't learn." "Can't learn? Why?" Garrett was surprised. "Afraid you won't understand? I can simplify it for you. I'm the best at explaining things. When it comes to patients and their families, explaining medical conditions, surgical procedures, I've always made it understandable for them." He took a step forward. Elliot immediately stepped back, his gaze reluctant yet regretful. "I can't learn. According to the mage's rules, any knowledge and service come at a price, and I can't afford the cost of this meditation technique. But you helped me so much before, what you've told me is already enough." Elliot softened his gaze, staring deeply into Garrett's eyes. Then, as if fearing a change of heart, he gritted his teeth and turned away. "I'll cast the copying spell for you. Understanding languages, if you need it, is also fine. But don't tell me anything more. I can't afford it." Garrett stood there stunned. Earlier, if Elliot hadn't spoken, Garrett would have understood. As a mage, there's always some pride, some arrogance about certain things, but after persuading and persuading, he still adhered firmly to the principle of fair exchange. Refusing to waver, "You could at least offer a layaway plan." Feeling regretful, Garrett wanted to smash something. The more Elliot declined, the more Garrett felt inclined to share. After all, it wasn't anything particularly special. In his previous life, even medical students could learn it. Caught in a dilemma, he suddenly had an idea. The price I need isn't what you're thinking." "What?" "When I was learning this knowledge, I once made a vow." As Garrett began to speak, his words flowed more smoothly. "After all, the existence of an oath is real. The process of making it is real." Maybe he had revised it numerous times during his oath-taking, but it wasn't the earliest original version. "I swore to teach everything I learned without reservation to my teacher's children, my own children, and any disciples willing to take the same oath. So, as long as you're willing to swear, come on, agree already. I won't teach you these things just because you helped me a lot before." Garrett felt a bit impatient, yet after pondering for a while, Elliot's first words were, "What kind of oath?" Okay, in the magical world, taking oaths seriously is necessary. Or else you won't even know how you died." Garrett took a deep breath and began to recount a revised version, or rather, one adapted to the specifics of this world, of the Hippocratic Oath. "I swear to the best of my ability and judgment, to act for the benefit of the sick and do no harm. I will not give a lethal drug to anyone if I am asked, nor will I advise on such a plan. And similarly, I will not give a woman a destructive remedy. I will keep secret what I see or hear, in the practice or even outside of the practice." Elliot listened intently, growing increasingly surprised by the end. He seemed lost in thought for a long while before sighing deeply. The predecessor who established these rules must have been a sage. Of course, it's Hippocrates, not just him, but Bianke, Huatua, Zhang Zhongjing, Sun Simiao, Li Shizhen, even the great doctors of modern China. Each of them deserves to be revered as a sage alongside the god of agriculture. Following Garrett's guidance, the young mage solemnly made the oath, a revised version of the Hippocratic Oath. Subsequently, the two of them sneaked into a small room opposite the library, where Garrett unfolded a large piece of paper and started drawing a schematic of the human body: bones, muscles, blood vessels, the heart, the flow of blood, the aorta, pulmonary arteries, pulmonary veins, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Garrett hunched over the table, drawing for an hour straight. As he drew and explained, his wrist ached, his mouth grew dry. He went through sheet after sheet, covering the entire tabletop from left to right. This time, he completely exhausted his artistic skills as a doctor previously. It was just rough sketches to explain things, no need for correctness in shapes or proportional accuracy. Normally, drawing a few organs or bones sufficed for the patients and their families to understand. If they couldn't understand, he would deepen their understanding during treatment, but this time it was for sale, no, an exchange of knowledge and information requiring quality assurance. Oh, my poor back. Straightening up, Garrett rubbed his lower back on his left. Elliot was in the same position, hunched over the table, eyes squinting at the drawings. If he hadn't stood up just now, the upper bodies of the two would have formed a right angle. "Hey, if you bend down a bit more, you'll dive into the drawing." Garrett felt like laughing out of habit, or perhaps from countless times of asking patients and their families in his past life, he inquired of Elliot, "Is there anything you don't understand?" No response. Elliot lay engrossed on the latest sketch of the human body, as if captivated, as if his soul had been captured after patiently waiting for a minute. Then another. Garrett finally gave up waiting and began to roll up his sleeves to copy the vocabulary list. After copying about half a page, Elliot suddenly jumped up like a startled rabbit and darted out, "Garrett, hey, hey, the body diagrams. Don't just leave them." Elliot quickly returned, gripping an ink bottle in his left hand and a large scroll in his right. He slapped it onto the table without a word. He snatched Magic Linguistics from Garrett's hand, placed one hand on the book, and murmured an incantation. A glow shimmered, and the blank scroll instantly transformed into a stack of copies. Copying spell, done. "Wow, that's impressive." Garrett's eyes brightened. He smiled and nodded at Elliot, but only caught a glimpse of his back. The young mage swiftly snatched the sketches from the table, once again dashing out. This time, he was faster, running while tightly clutching the papers, as if afraid of being seen. I hope he remembers everything back then. He studied systemic anatomy for a full 120 hours, even though he condensed it and condensed it again. Memorizing this stack of papers in one go was quite a challenge. With a smile, Garrett got to work, scissors in his left hand, paste in his right. He cut the copies made from the copying spell into strips and pasted them in order onto blank sheets. He worked tirelessly for an entire day. As he walked out of the Mage Tower in the evening, there was a sudden loud noise above. Garrett reflexively looked up. From the fourth-floor window where Elliot had been hurled earlier in the morning, a young boy flew out, gesticulating wildly and swearing, "Elliot, you're breaking the rules." Standing at the Mage Tower's entrance, Garrett tilted his head back, his mouth slowly gaping. No way. Did this meditation spell work so quickly? Chapter 54. With the mental boost from meditation and the aid of transcription magic, Garrett's progress surged forward. He finished piecing together the dictionary in just 2 days. Eagerly, he fetched Fundamentals of Spells, ready to see which magic he could learn. The answer? All level 0 spells, the book stated clearly. As long as a novice had enough mental strength, they could learn all level 0 spells. Sounds generous, right? But even before turning the page, Garrett spotted a note scrawled in red on the margin. Level 0 spells, also known as parlor tricks. Congratulations, you can now be a street performer. Garrett. He took a deep breath, another one, then shut his eyes. Adjusting his emotions, he repeated silently, "There's no useless magic, only inept mages. There's no useless magic, only inept mages." Continuing until he regained composure, he opened his eyes to continue reading. According to the Fundamentals of Spells, based on a mage apprentice's mental strength, they could cast between 1 to 5 level 0 spells a day. Beginners could manage one, while those about to advance to official mage apprentices could cast up to 5 spells daily, provided they had potions to supplement their energy. Generally, mastering 3 or more level 0 spells and being able to cast spells 5 times a day could propel one towards becoming a first-rank mage. The author of the Fundamentals of Spells sternly pointed out, as mental strength increases significantly after advancement, it's more efficient to learn lower-level magic. Typically, qualified mages are advised not to learn too many parlor tricks during their apprenticeship. So, he could only pick 3 for now? Thinking like this, Garrett didn't believe he belonged to the inept category, being a traveler, breaking through obstacles and swiftly advancing to top-tier mage status, mastering 9th-level magic effortlessly, even inventing new spells. That was the expected treatment. Moreover, didn't he comprehend healing on his first day here and immediately become a cleric apprentice? Filled with confidence, Garrett sifted through the Fundamentals of Spells, picking and choosing. The book didn't list many level 0 spells, maybe around 8 or 9, yet Garrett found it a bit overwhelming. Reading magic, used to interpret magical text on objects, books, scrolls, weapons, etc. This spell seemed like the first weapon for learning magic, but it required a transparent crystal or prism as a casting material. Garrett patted himself down and had to set it aside for now. Light, dance, creating a light source, radiance, making an object glow like a torch, Spark, igniting an extremely small flammable object. Frost beam, shooting a cold beam causing damage or maybe making an ice pop. Seemingly, these were essential practical magics for everyday use. Mage hand, moving a lightweight object with telekinesis at close range. Secret mark, magic tricks both mentioned in the fundamentals of spells as common parlor tricks for apprentice mages. There was even a note in red ink. If you can't learn these, give up. You're not cut out to be a mage. Garrett went through the pages one by one suddenly, his hand, flipping through the dictionary, trembled, freezing in place, as if struck by lightning. A faint shiver ran through him. Level 0 spell. Magic detection. Detect magical auras on objects or specific areas. The name and function seemed ordinary, however, as Garrett read through each line. He stumbled upon a sentence that set his heart racing. This spell can penetrate barriers, however. 1 foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, a thin sheet of lead, 3 feet of wood or earth can block the detection. This is... Garrett's heart pounded. A spell with penetration ability blocked to varying degrees by lead and other substances. Seeing this, his knowledge, intuition, every neuron in his brain shouted loudly, X-ray. X-ray. The divine tool for surgical examination, X-ray, ultrasound, CT scans, magnetic resonance among these, the cheapest and earliest to appear. I found it. Without hesitation, Garrett grabbed a piece of paper and prioritized magic detection for interpretation. Learning level 0 magic wasn't difficult. Garrett focused, sensing the wondrous world he touched during meditation. Once his entire being entered a lucid state, elements earth, water, fire, wind, and the cosmos faintly emerged. Following the instructions in the fundamentals of spells, he made the casting gestures, reciting the incantation word by word. As the incantation ended, Garrett felt a gentle wave in his mental energy resonating with the sound waves. The unnamed force he encountered during meditation was disturbed, gradually changing under the pull of his mental strength. Garrett concentrated, using mental energy to guide the meditative world, outlining runic symbols as described in the book. 1 stroke, 2 strokes. Damn it. It's crooked. The runes in the meditative vision trembled, weakly dispersing. He felt a slight fatigue in his mental energy, and Garrett sighed softly. Learning magic wasn't that easy. Apprentice mage beginners could only cast 1 spell a day, meaning, without spending extra, he only had 1 chance to try per day. How many attempts would it take to master a new spell? 3 times? 5 times? 10 times? 10 times would mean 10 days. Becoming proficient would take even longer, and just like that, 1 or 2 months could pass in an instant. No wonder the fundamentals of spells didn't recommend learning too many spells for apprentice mages. Garrett felt a bit unwilling. He closed his eyes for a moment, carefully sensing, Can I try a few more times with my mental strength? If his intuition was correct, maybe 2 or 3 more times. So, does that mean I'm starting as a high-rank apprentice mage, or at least a mid-rank one? Is this a perk of being a traveler or a cleric apprentice? Whatever, if it's usable, it's good. Excitedly, Garrett clenched his fist, then composed himself again, starting another attempt. This time, there was progress. He continued outlining the runes until the 9th stroke, just 1 step away from completing the symbol. He gritted his teeth. 1 more try. This time, in the enhanced vision of meditation, a faint magical aura shimmered. Success. Suppressing his excitement, Garrett approached the bookshelf emitting the magical aura. It was quite dim, barely brighter than a household lamp, likely just useful for repelling bugs or moisture. Garrett controlled his excitement, extending his right hand towards the glow, as if he could see through it and also as if he couldn't. Is the aura too faint? Garrett thought for a moment, then dashed out of the library, rushing upstairs. Just as he turned at the landing of the stairs, someone abruptly yelled at him, "Oh, so you've come up here." Chapter 55. Garrett halted, coming to his senses, looking at the one speaking, but there was no one there. He lowered his gaze again. 15 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees. On the floor ahead, that mischievous kid from a few days ago was there. His face flushed with anger, bouncing around, stretching his arm and waving in front of Garrett's eyes. "Over here." "Who are you looking at?" "That rascal again." Garrett felt a bit of a headache, mumbled a vague response, and continued walking up. The kid tagged along, constantly yelling, "Why are you going up there? Hey, why are you going up there? That's where official mages stay. You're not even an apprentice." Second floor and above of the Mage Tower. In the past, Garrett wouldn't have had the qualification to go up there. The Mage Tower had a hall and a library on the first floor. Mage apprentices like the mischievous kid, who was only 10 but had already stepped into the world of magic, stayed on the second floor, while the official mages resided on the third. The fourth floor was for alchemy and experimenting with spells. The fifth floor was the residence of Mage Gelman, the overseer of the Mage Tower, and the hub of the Mage Tower was also located there. From the second floor and above, no matter how wealthy or influential someone might be, entry was strictly by invitation only. Garrett wasn't qualified to go up, but just now, he successfully cast his first spell. He was now a mage apprentice. Going up to the second floor was only natural. Climbing to the third floor, finding a familiar mage to ask a question, that shouldn't be a big problem, ha ha ha. The young boy chased after him, ranting and raving all the way, causing the stairs to resonate. Garrett wished he could make the noise physically disappear. Just as he paused, a loud voice came from the third floor. Absolutely not. What's not possible? Another familiar voice retorted even louder. I'm on the verge of success. Why should my research be halted just for you to buy alchemical materials? It's Mage Elliot arguing with someone? Garrett immediately perked up his ears. A slap landed on a table. And what about you? Improving spells without materials? Without scrolls? I've at least made something. What about you? How many scrolls have you copied these days? When the Magic Council comes for evaluation, let's see how you explain yourself. I'll be fine. Oh, no problems now? Just relying on that little kid's copied book? Don't joke, the words are still the same as the original, just rearranged. Do you think the Magic Council will appreciate such minimal results? Huh, are they talking about my spellbook? Garrett paused, cautiously stepping back a couple of paces to avoid an awkward encounter with the mages. Unexpectedly, the stairwell door burst open and the golden-haired boy who had been blasted out of the window a few days ago stormed out. Immediately furious upon seeing them, "Why are you coming up here? Is this where you belong?" He insisted on coming up. Without waiting for Garrett's reply, the boy jumped in, his voice shrill. "Mr. Karen, this guy isn't even a mage apprentice. He's not qualified to be here at all." "You." Mage Karen's furious gaze immediately turned towards Garrett. He pointed a finger at Garrett, a glow shimmering at his fingertip, clearly intending to vent his anger on Garrett. As for whether this magic was ice, fire, wind, or earth, Garrett, with his limited experience, couldn't tell at a glance. The staircase was narrow, nowhere to hide. Garrett didn't want to become the focus of their frustration. Before the spell could be cast, he shouted from deep within his core, "Mr. Elliot, I've learned my first spell. I have a question for you." "Learned a spell?" The glow on Mage Karen's fingertip flickered and then extinguished. Learning a spell meant being a mage apprentice. Occasionally going to the third floor of the Mage Tower was not out of the question. Moreover, he was looking for Elliot. He snorted and was about to go upstairs, minding his own business to continue his alchemical experiments. However, as soon as he took a step, he heard the young boy yelling, "You learned magic? Impossible. Just a few days ago, you couldn't even read." "Huh?" Mage Karen stopped in his tracks. In the room, Mage Elliot had already raised his voice. "Garrett, come in. Couldn't read a few days ago, and now he's learned magic?" Mage Karen's curiosity was piqued, and he followed along. Elliot was tidying scattered papers, still somewhat angry. Seeing Garrett, his expression softened a bit, a hint of joy in his eyes. "You've cast a spell successfully? What was the first one you learned? Any questions you have for me?" "He's definitely lying." The young boy tattled to Mage Karen beside him. "He came up here, got caught by you, and claimed to be a mage apprentice." "Lies. I saw it with my own eyes. Just a few days ago, he didn't even know all the magic words." "Is that so?" The golden-haired boy looked to Elliot in inquiry. Elliot felt somewhat awkward. The boy was the grandson of Mage Gelman, the mentor of the great mage himself, representing the Magic Council in inspecting nearby mage towers. Despite being official mages themselves, they couldn't easily reprimand this child given his status. Elliot pretended not to have heard and coughed lightly, turning to Garrett. "What magic did you learn?" "Cast it again, let me see." "It's magic detection," Garrett replied. As soon as he spoke, the young boy humphed disdainfully, mocking even louder. "Magic detection? Whether the spell succeeds or not, it's up to you. You're not just trying to deceive us with that, are you?" "George." Mage Karen rebuked him softly. Then, turning to Garrett, he ordered, Alright, cast it here, see how many magical items are in the hall. If you can correctly identify 3 or even point out the strongest one, it'll count as a successful casting. Garrett nodded slightly in agreement. He took 2 steps back, his back against the wall, trying to widen his field of vision as much as possible, focusing to cast the spell. The hall was no more than 30 square meters. With 6 wooden chairs surrounding a rectangular table occupying most of the space, there were chandeliers overhead, tapestries on the walls, and a fireplace at the end of the hall. At first glance, it looked much like the setup in the library downstairs. Garrett softly recited the incantation, with his voice, faint magical auras lit up during his meditation, dazzling white, pale yellow, light azure, and more as he shifted his gaze. Amazing. That mischievous kid, his robe, the headband, and the necklace, all 3 items shimmered with more brilliance than the furnishings in the room. The 3rd-gen mage was really something. Garrett silently swallowed his resentment towards the kid, moving his gaze, one by one, mentioning those magical items: chandelier, the tapestry on the left, the fireplace. Although the magical auras were dim and the enchantment levels were low, probably similar to the bookshelf downstairs, but 3 items. With each item he listed, the boy's eyes and mouth widened, forming 3 perfect O shapes. It can't be. You actually. How's that? Someone learning faster than you? The golden-haired youth teased, leaning down, deliberately asking near the young boy's ear. After a moment of confusion, the boy shouted, "I don't believe it." He turned and ran out of the hall, slamming the staircase door shut. With a bang, even the vase on the table trembled. Vase? The vase! Garrett's heart skipped a beat. He hurried forward, pulled out the flowers from the vase, and turned it upside down. Rolling out from the vase was a gemstone that shone brightly in the magic detection's sight. Garrett reached out and captured that light. What he saw was still a hazy vision. Chapter 56. Garrett received a summons within half an hour. Magic research was common, but apprenticeships were not. In a mage tower, only a handful of apprentices were trained each year. If luck wasn't on your side, you might go years without success. Mage Gelman, stuck in his research, was glad for the chance to meet the new apprentice Garrett. At least it offered a change of pace. After confirmation, Garrett's status was immediately elevated to that of an apprentice. A new set of magical robes, a single room within the mage tower, paper, ink, candles, and all necessary personal items. Even the servant guarding the gate, with a worried expression, held 5 silver coins, wanting to return them to Garrett. The reason being that a mage's mount could be stored in the tower, so there was no need for payment. Though he didn't take the money, Garrett remained in good spirits throughout. As he entered the city, returned the horse at the military camp, and made his way back home. People kept greeting him. "Garrett, you're back. Garrett, that robe, are you a mage now?" "Congratulations, Garrett." Garrett happily responded. Along the way, by this time, the sky had darkened and the cottages along the road were starting to light up with scattered stars. Arriving at his doorstep, just about to pull out his keys, someone dashed out from a side alley. Their shoulders collided, causing Garrett to step back with an ouch. The person who dashed at him also exclaimed, "Ouch." He stumbled back more, almost tripping. Then, with a glare and a raised dark fist, "You!" Suddenly, he froze, gazing fixedly at the staff emblem on Garrett's robe's cuff. Without a word, he turned and ran away. Garrett silently looked at his cuff. So, becoming an apprentice had its perks. Not bad at all. Humming a tune, Garrett entered his house. The person who collided with him ran quite a distance away. Only stopping at the tavern, a man, reeking of alcohol, was waiting by the back door and asked upon his arrival, "How did it go? Did you get him? You almost killed me. That kid, he's an apprentice mage." "An apprentice mage?" The man at the tavern was astonished. "Are you sure? He only went to the mage tower a few days ago. How could I be mistaken? That kid was wearing a robe, with a staff embroidered on the cuff. I saw it clearly." The man at the tavern pondered. Meanwhile, the one who collided had extended his hand. Fingers splayed out, pointing near his eyes. "Money! No business, yet asking for money? Come on. You didn't mention he was an apprentice mage. If you ask for more money, I'll report to the city guard, saying you hired someone to murder you." The two began a scuffle. Garrett was oblivious to all this, first heading to the military camp to report his apprentice status and future residency at the mage tower. Then, He went to the temple of the god of war to inquire about the progress in crafting surgical instruments. Still not finished, and it seemed it would take another 10 days or so. It's going to take this long still? Garrett sighed so deeply that it felt like his lungs might burst. But I'm supposed to start staying at the Mage Tower from tomorrow. Yeah. Congratulations on your mage robes, the bald bishop chuckled. Since you're going to reside in the Mage Tower, let's practice the healing process you mentioned again. No, I want to go home. Tonight, you're staying at the temple. Tomorrow morning, I'll send a carriage to take you to the Mage Tower. Garrett's objections were in vain. The bald bishop extended his big hand, lifting him along with his mage robes, like grabbing a chick, and took him to the back hall. Garrett was busy in the temple for the whole night. The next morning, when the Temple of War's carriage was sent to take him out of the city, he was completely asleep inside, not even willing to open his eyes for a moment, and so he didn't see two people not far from the city gates, pointing and speaking with grim faces towards the carriage. He was also unaware that on that same night, a middle-aged woman entered the Lord's mansion, tear-streaked face, wailing, "Roman is also your son. The temple has put him in confinement, saying they can't help. A scoundrel like that harmed him, and you say you can't do anything. Are you still the Lord of Heartland City? Do you still care about him in your heart? Don't shout so loudly. It doesn't sound good if Roman's identity is yelled about." Lord Joanne, with drooping eye bags, slowly replied, "That kid. He's become an apprentice mage. He's harmed Roman. My Roman. His hands are ruined." The middle-aged woman grew more agitated, her once graceful face contorting with rage. "You said he's a city guard. Then you say the Temple of War values him, so I can't seek revenge, dragging it out like this. And now he's an apprentice mage. I finally found someone to teach him a lesson, and they won't lay a finger on him. You got someone to attack him?" Lord Joe and suddenly lifted his eyelids. "Fool! Do you know why the city guard protects him? Why the Temple of War values him? He healed an injury the bishop couldn't. When you're a healer, you avoid making enemies if you can. But my Roman," the woman cried bitterly. Lord Joe sighed, patting her arm gently, soothing her softly. "If it's for Roman, you shouldn't trouble that kid even more. Do you know what that kid has been doing lately? He's working on something, saying it can heal Baron's hand." Baron's hand. The woman immediately stopped crying. Baron's skills with the bow and arrow were among the best in Heartland City, but he couldn't shoot properly after injuring his hand 3 years ago. "That scoundrel says he can heal it? The Temple of War's information claims he can," Lord Joe sighed. "So, for now, endure a bit longer. Don't go after that kid. If Baron's hand can really be healed, I'll approach the Spring Temple and have them release Roman to treat his injury. Even if the temple is strict, they wouldn't deny treatment, right?" The woman gradually stopped crying. But then, she became anxious. What if he refuses to treat him? Recalling the conscriptions, dragging people to the temple, each thing added up to antagonizing someone. If that scoundrel held a grudge, refusing to help, what then? That's why did you try to get someone to attack him? Lord Joan wanted to sigh again. However, the woman was his lover, and Roman, although a bastard, was still his. He was the only knight among his illegitimate children, usually quite amiable and cared for. He had to care for him at least a bit. "It's okay, I'm here," he softly reassured. "If Baron's hand can't be healed, then so be it, but if it can, I'll ask for help from the Temple of War. With the temple and the Lord's mansion behind it, that kid wouldn't dare to refuse treatment." Chapter 57. Garrett's days settled into a temporary calm. He nestled quietly in the Mage Tower, reading, memorizing incantations, and studying magic. 2 days later, he mastered the spark spell, and another 2 days after that, he successfully executed the mage hand. The following days consisted of mental exercises through meditation and refining his control of the mage hand. But most importantly, every day, he sought opportunities to cast the detection spell 3 times, trying to see if he could find that magical glint capable of revealing bones through the human body. In a blink, Half a month had passed. Garrett was once again summoned to the temple of the god of war. This time, with the cooperation of priests and knights, he completed a surgery unprecedented in this world. The suturing of the flexor tendons on the radial side of the right wrist. He wore a makeshift surgical gown that had been steamed for half an hour and recently dried, along with gloves fashioned from intestines. Assistants stood across from him, and someone passed instruments from the side overhead. Within a meter-wide disc, scattered white lights shone down upon closer inspection. They were all illumination spells conjured on-site by the priests. This was what surgery looked like. Compared to those crude abdominal surgeries in the wilderness, the difference was vast. It's really better to be in the right place at the right time. Garrett breathed in the air of the temple happily. Well, the scent wasn't particularly pleasant, and there were too many people around with rather strong body odors. Priests from the temple of the god of war, priest apprentices, knights with enough experience and curiosity, besides assisting him, all crowded into the hall. They brought chairs, tables, and piled up stools. They encircled the operating table in 3 concentric rings, from the inside out and from low to high. Seeing them huddling and straining to get a glimpse of the surgery, Garrett wanted to say, "Please don't fall, and if you do, please don't land on the operating table and disrupt my surgery." But not everyone was allowed, and Sir Flynn, Sir Westlow, and other friends of Baron were pushed outside the hall. Craning their necks to catch a glimpse, Sir Flynn even shouted, "Little Garrett, please." "I got it," Garrett shouted back, preparing the skin, disinfecting with strong alcohol. Applying a tourniquet, did it all himself. Nodding to the bald bishop across with clasped hands, the bishop murmured a prayer. "All-powerful God of war, please be merciful to your faithful, and spare them from feeling pain." As soon as he finished speaking, a lattice of white light fixed the Knight Baron to the operating table. The knight's head tilted, almost immediately drifting off to sleep. Garrett, even though it wasn't the first time he had seen it, he genuinely wanted to ask, is this a numbing spell, hypnosis, or some kind of magical confinement? It didn't matter what method was used. They had previously experimented on live pigs. During the surgery, the pig remained completely still, not struggling at all, not even tensing its muscles. Perfect. While Garrett was still a little worried and hesitant to voice his concerns, the bald bishop called over 10 or more healthy volunteers, devout believers willing to be test subjects. With divine anesthesia as a base, the success rate of the surgery increased by at least 30%. Garrett nodded happily to both sides and, lowering his gaze, made the incision. Luck was on his side. Whether it was the newly sharpened scalpel or the divine anesthesia reducing skin resistance, the skin on the Baron's wrist split smoothly under the knife. Garrett sighed in relief. Thank goodness. At least it didn't reach a point where the skin couldn't be cut at all. If it had come to that, where would his dignity as the lead surgeon go? Although, the temple knights who were assisting him were already prepared on the sidelines. With minimal bleeding from the incision, a few exclamations echoed around. "Wow! So little bleeding. How did he manage that?" "Hey, tell us more," urged the bald bishop. His voice sounded muffled under the mask, like thunder. Considering his influential position, Garrett lectured the onlookers while continuing his work. "Pay attention to the depth of the incision. If you only cut the skin without reaching the muscles and blood vessels beneath, of course, there won't be much bleeding." Hook. 2 unfamiliar priests rushed forward, each holding a hook. Pulling the incised skin outward, freckled priest John stood at the patient's feet and, without waiting for Garrett's cue, handed over a pair of forceps. Their coordination was good. It paid off to have trained them for several days. Garrett took the forceps satisfiedly, avoiding the blood vessels and nerves on the patient's arm, systematically searching through the crimson muscle. Simultaneously, he silently counted in his mind. 1, 2, 3. "Ugh, see," someone vomited. "Come on, guys, you're from the temple of the god of war. If you can't even handle watching a surgery, how will you save people?" Thinking this, Garrett completely forgot about his own first-time experience in a human dissection class, where he ended up looking ghastly while throwing up. Rolling his eyes at the other side, Garrett realized there was no reaction. Looking again, The bald bishop's head turned aside, cheeks bulging beneath the thin mask. "Hey!" Garrett called softly. The bishop's Adam's apple moved several times, his chest heaving as if he had swallowed something finally. He raised his head and thundered, "Go out and puke!" A thunderous boom. Garrett didn't turn back. It sounded like the guy who threw up was thrown out of the circle directly from the table. "Seriously, isn't your temple of the god of war quite violent?" He continued his careful operation. Avoiding blood vessels and nerves, he hooked each muscle. Then, murmuring incantations, he employed the mage hand to pull sideways, but it wouldn't budge, according to the basics of spells. The mage hand magic could move objects weighing no more than 5 pounds, but now, it seemed the force required to pull the hook was exceeding that limit. Garrett inwardly broke into a cold sweat. He handed the hooks to the assistants, instructing them to pull. Meanwhile, he continued to search, finding the contracted radial side wrist flexor deep within the muscle. He clamped the tendon's end with tissue forceps. Everything went smoothly until Garrett encountered his first obstacle. I pull, I can't pull it. Damn it, just like last time with the chest decompression, I couldn't puncture the chest, and now, when stretching the tendon, I can't stretch the muscle? Are the knights in this world really so physically powerful? Relaxation. I need relaxation. However, in this otherworldly place devoid of pharmaceuticals, there was no place even if he had money to buy muscle relaxants. Garrett subconsciously glanced backward in his accustomed direction from his past life, where an anesthetist should be. There were only layers of tables, chairs, and priests in white robes standing on them. As for the one who actually assumed the responsibility of the anesthetist, Garrett had an idea. He clenched the middle of the forceps with his right hand, released the left, and pointed the forceps handle towards the bald bishop. Hold onto this and pull back. I'll say stop when to stop. 1, 2, 3. Hey, stop. I've ended up with this bishop doubling as a knight. The radial side wrist flexor that I couldn't budge, he straightened in an instant. Garrett wiped off a bead of sweat discreetly. Thankfully, with the bishop's every command corresponding to an action, he stopped as soon as Garrett signaled without pulling a millimeter more. His robust arms stabilized and meticulously aligned the other end of the severed tendon, adjusting its shape, and joined both ends together. Then, with both hands raised in front of his chest, palms facing outward. Assuming the preparatory posture of a surgeon, concentrating his mind, he silently recited, "The well-being of one depends on the trust of another." Chapter 58. A white light fell from his fingertips. The severed tendons wriggled a bit, almost reaching out to connect again. Garrett stared intently, quietly thrilled. Suturing had always been one of the trickiest parts of tendon surgery. Every needle placement, every tug of the thread influenced the healing outcome, let alone using 4-0 or 5-0 threads. Sewing down to 10-0, they had to possess sufficient tensile strength. A curved needle with a 100 diameter required a precise 23-degree angle, no more, no less. The needle's body had to curve perfectly but maintain a square cross-section for easy handling. With the world's industrial level, Garrett doubted they'd achieve this in the next decade, but now there was healing magic. No need for stitches. No more squinting through microscopes to sew 6 or 8 stitches on a 1mm blood vessel. Though he'd practiced stitching on oranges and grapes since university, it seemed all for naught, but it felt good. Under the white light, the tendons gradually began to fuse, strand by strand. Stopped. Was the healing insufficient? During simulations, whether it was pigs or sheep, tendon healing had been a breeze. Garrett paused to think, surmising that the knight's vitality demanded more energy for tendon healing. All right, let's try again. Another burst of white light, tendons growing. Stopped again, trying to push more healing. He started feeling dizzy, temples throbbing, familiar from his days as a mage apprentice, mental exhaustion, unable to cast spells. Low levels were truly a bummer. Even for a small tendon suture alone, he couldn't finish it all. Garrett signaled decisively. The lead physician, having completed the critical part, handed over the rest to the assistants. Bald bishop. Time for your entrance. The bishop's move was impressive indeed. A fine, dense white light descended, and in an instant, the severed tendons were restored to their original state, not a trace of damage. Garrett tugged, muscles stretched, tendons firmly connecting muscle to bone. No sign of any rupture. How is it? Several voices chimed. Garrett inspected once more, then looked up, smiling. It should be fine, per holy water. Rinse from top to bottom. Ah, although lacking saline rinses, antibiotic washes, or heparinized saline, holy water was something better than nothing, right? Thanks to the collaboration with the temple, they had plenty of holy water, gallons poured down, splashing to the ground. After a final check, confirming no bleeding from any tiny vessels, Garrett straightened up. Very good, successful surgery. Everyone got it? No, a chorus of clear, confident voices around the surgical table. The onlookers, priests, and knights, chosen as assistants, all hung their heads, avoiding Garrett's gaze. Can't do it. Garrett caught a mumble from someone behind. He rolled his eyes, so proud of being able to sew. Huh? Feeling superior? Someday, I'll make you hold onto a threaded iron rod inside a patient and wait till the fire brigade brings the saw. And no moving. Opposite him, the bald bishop, playing his part as an assistant, glared sternly. His eyes, resembling both famous characters, conveyed, "Can't do it." In the left and "You promised to teach." In the right, Garrett couldn't help but smile. He shot back a "Keep calm" look and continued with instructions. Release the hooks. Let go. You two, let go, let go, let go. Good. Healing magic, skin restoration. Once again, the white light descended. This time, what everyone saw was flawless skin, completely devoid of any wounds. Apart from removing all hair follicles, making it cleaner than the other hand. No signs of surgery were visible. Garrett nodded in satisfaction. Having healing magic was indeed good. Post-op infections, poor healing, compromised blood supply, all seemed unnecessary to worry about. He personally loosened the tourniquet, observed blood flow, and... No, this wasn't the anesthetist's job. Release the confinement spell. Garrett's clear voice echoed. The white light vanished swiftly, and Sir Baron, the knight, sat up and hopped off the operating table. Wow. That was way quicker than anesthesia recovery. Wonder if it hurt when they cut his wrist or if he felt anything else. Remind myself to ask later. Volunteers brought in by the bald bishop always made Garrett wary. Too devout. What if they felt pain but didn't admit it? That could be a serious problem. Garrett pondered swiftly. Meanwhile, Sir Baron, having descended from the table, immediately flexed his wrist. It moved. It worked. I'm all better. Sir Baron roared. In that moment, Garrett felt the temple shake, the roof tremble, dust lightly falling. Even more terrifying, right after that roar, Sir Baron turned to embrace him. Garrett instinctively stepped back. Wait, 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 wait. Let me check if your hand can exert force. Let's do a muscle strength test. Garrett's voice tapered off, gradually fading. Sir Baron looked left and right, gripped the table's edge with his right hand, muscles taut, and exerted force. Nothing moved. That operating table was firmly fixed to the ground. Garrett felt a tad embarrassed. Sir Baron, however, remained composed, grabbing a curved hook, clutching it in his left hand, holding the bent part with his right, and pulled with all his might. Oh, the metallic creaking sounds, Garrett's carefully drawn diagram, the specially crafted hook, all got straightened by Sir Baron. Don't, that's mine. He stared at Sir Baron. Sir Baron stared back, utterly innocent. After a moment, the knight dropped the hook, rushed forward, and hugged Garrett tightly, tears streaming. I'm healed. My hand's healed. It's healed. Garrett struggled to turn away from the commotion. Suddenly, he felt himself lifted high into the air. Sir Baron, Sir Flynn, Sir Westlow, and the other familiar temple knights all joined in, catching him, tossing him, catching again and tossing once more. Put me down! Put me down! Don't toss me around here. There are scalpel shelp. In the temple, Garrett's cries of distress echoed, lingering in the halls. Chapter 59. Have you heard? Baron Knight's hand has healed. Did you hear? That knight who injured his hand 3 years ago and couldn't draw a bow again. His hand's healed. Is it true that it was healed at the temple of the war god? It seems the bishop healed him. Oh, your sources are terribly out of touch. I heard it was done by a little lad. Even the bishop takes orders from him. Does whatever he says. The news of Baron Knight's old injury healing spread through Heartland City like wildfire. Those who were injured themselves, or had loved ones suffering, even those whose treatments hadn't worked well, regardless of whether they were warriors or not, everyone was intrigued, even Lord Joan. The city lord summoned Baron Knight once and thoroughly inquired about his healing process. 3 days later, Bald Bishop sent a letter asking Garrett if he could heal Roman Knight's hand. The answer was a firm no, without a doubt. He refuses to heal? He outright refuses. Roman Knight roared in his room. He was only put in the penance chamber as a formality, got gifts in just a couple of days, and the high priestess of the spring goddess released him. Those places, silent and lightless, where knights below level 10 spent half a month, drove anyone crazy. Yet, even then, he wasn't allowed to step outside the temple, not even the rear temple, confined to a small room for self-reflection. If not for his mother's letters that frequently arrived, he might have gone mad long ago. I'll kill him, I swear I'll kill him. Yes. I'll write a letter now. Tell my mother to send someone to kill him. Mother and son were in sync. The middle-aged woman, Roman Knight's mother, was currently raging in the city lord's mansion. This time, she didn't bother with pretenses, pacing in the mansion's small guest room, knocking down ornaments in frustration. These commoners are just that common. I've been patient enough. I said if he heals Roman, I won't pursue it, but this despicable fellow dares to refuse. I'll kill him. I will definitely kill him. He didn't do it on purpose. Lord Joan sighed. He spread out a stack of papers, a letter Garrett wrote to the war god's bishop, densely packed with words and intricate drawings. Apart from making one dizzy with the drawings, it was sincere and informative. How many tendons on the palm, how much finer than those on the wrist, requiring delicate instruments to prevent worsening in that letter. It was all described vividly. The bald bishop probably had thoughts of helping Garrett out of this mess. Sending the letter to the Lord without withholding a page. Even if Lord Joan couldn't fully understand, he could read between the lines. They genuinely couldn't do it, not out of spite towards Roman, deliberately doing nothing. The mistress, or rather, the aging mistress, was still making a fuss. Lord Joan, tiredly supporting his forehead, said, "What would you do to him? He never leaves the mage tower." The middle-aged woman choked, even if she was unreasonable. She knew the mage tower wasn't something to tamper with. Even if she controlled the knights under her son's command and could muster hundreds of militia, it was a joke in front of the mage tower's power. "Two, don't believe he'll never come out in his lifetime. No laying hands on him." Lord Jones slapped the table after yelling. He quickly calmed himself, trying to persuade his mistress. "That lad is a healer. A healer. The bishop couldn't heal Baron Knight's injury. But this lad could. Do you know how many people are counting on him for treatment? Do you know how many, if they get injured in the future, would wish for someone like him? If you get someone to kill him, and it's exposed, I can't even save you. But, no buts. There's no but. For Roman's injury, let's find another healer. Find the archbishop. Find the high priest. Under no circumstance are you to lay a finger on him." The middle-aged woman cried bitterly and left. Once on the carriage, she wiped her tears and gritted her teeth at the steward outside. "Investigate. Find me something on that commoner. I refuse to believe there's no way to get at him." When the lady of the house spoke, the steward dared not delay, immediately hiring people to investigate. But after extensive searches, they couldn't find a way. Garrett was alone, his father deceased long ago, his mother vanished many years before. Among those familiar in the city, there were only his father's old comrades. However, trying to use them to harm Garrett would be madness. "Madam, this?" The steward bent lower, creaking. It felt like his bones were audible. "Oh, my old waist. I should visit the temple another day. Can't afford healing, but catching some divine light during prayers would soothe me for a few days." The middle-aged woman's expression grew darker. She gently waved her fan, opening and closing the feathered fan. The crimson rouge was deeply embedded among the feathers, as if throttling an enemy's neck. Click! The fan bones snapped, and suddenly, The woman said, "That commoner? Is he a healer?" "Yes." "The divine emissary of the nature god?" "Well, he said that himself." "But it must be true. Both the city guards and the temple guards have heard of it." "Then why has he never gone to worship?" The steward was at a loss for words. The middle-aged woman suddenly stood up, pacing in the room, her tone growing more urgent. "That's it. He either stays in the Mage Tower or hangs around the temple of the war god. All this time, he's never worshipped the nature god. He never speaks like those priests. Always talking about nature god, he never says such things. This divine emissary of his is definitely a sham. But the nature god doesn't have a temple. No temple doesn't mean no followers. The worshippers of the nature god roam the streets. It's hard in the upper city, but in the slums, wouldn't it be easier to find them? If not, just find a random hill outside the city. As long as there's a ring of stones, you'll definitely stumble upon them. That commoner relied on his healing arts, first got in with the temple of the war god, then pleased the city guards, but never once sought out the followers of the nature god. His divine emissary status is a sham. He's guilty." Snap, crackle, a few consecutive crisp sounds. The fan's bones shattered, and even the feathers were torn off in pieces, filling the room with emerald and gold, fluttering everywhere. The woman stamped the floor, her voice excited, eyes gleaming. "Find the worshippers of the nature god. Relay this message to them. No church tolerates a false divine emissary. It's disrespectful, blasphemous. Pass the message on. The worshippers of the nature god will definitely take down that lad." Chapter 60. God of Nature? Garrett had long forgotten about that. These days, he was cooped up in the Mage Tower, diving into magic studies with fervor meditation, memorizing incantations, perusing basic texts. Learning magic was so much fun. This dance of lights creates 4 light sources that float around. With a few more, couldn't one create a handheld lamp without shadows? Oh, this frost beam. Perfect for making ice in summer. If only it could drop the temperature a bit more. I could make some exquisite ice cream. This spark spell is good too, producing strong light, but using fireflies as the casting material harms the ecosystem. I need to research if there's an alternative. Garrett was immersed in his studies, but there were 2 slight concerns. Firstly, his mental capacity had hit a plateau after casting spells 5 times a day. He hit a wall. No progress. Secondly, his research into magical detection or X-ray spells hadn't budged. He scoured every inch of the Mage Tower except the core. Despite the search, he couldn't find a spell capable of revealing bones. Every day, he questioned life itself. Do the laws of physics in this world differ from my previous lives? Or do I need radioactive materials? But if I find them, can my frail body handle it? Every day was spent eating, sleeping, and researching in the Mage Tower. There wasn't a line but a single point. If he checked his daily trajectory with a mobile, he'd only see a solitary dot. Comfortable, dreamy, a life of contentment. But this time, Garrett was kicked out of the Mage Tower to patrol the nearby Tarl village. It fell under the Mage Tower's jurisdiction, or more accurately, the Magic Council's ownership. Although rent collection didn't require personal intervention, monthly patrols were necessary to assert the village's affiliation. At least the mage needed to make an appearance. Naturally, this mundane task, useless for magical research, fell onto Garrett, the lowest ranked and newest mage apprentice riding an old horse. Swaying gently, he followed the gatekeeper towards Tarl village. The horse was docile, requiring no effort from Garrett. Lost in thought, he meandered along the path. Suddenly, a loud scream echoed from nearby. "Garrett! Someone's injured? Where? Is it severe?" He sprinted towards the sound. Arriving, he found a middle-aged man lying under a small cliff, pale-faced, with a twisted left leg. A woven basket lay 5 or 6 steps away. Its rope dangling loosely. One end was tied around his waist, now just a meter long, roughly cut. The other end hung from the cliff, seemingly snapped while he was working there. A fall from a height. Left leg fracture. possibly accompanied by other fractures or internal injuries. Garrett glanced and swiftly concluded he crouched beside the man, pressing his right wrist. You fell from up there? Anyone else nearby? Do you live nearby? The man nodded vigorously, struggling. He tugged at Garrett's sleeve. Save me, great. The patient's conscious, strong pulse, smooth breathing, stable vital signs for now. Garrett glanced and saw the bone jutting out from the man's lower left leg, blood oozing steadily, open fracture, significant bleeding. First, stop the bleeding. Instinctively, Garrett lunged forward, extending his right hand, firmly pressing the man's femoral artery. Turning, he shouted to the Mage Tower's attendant, "Any long bandages?" "No." "Yes." A chaotic series of footsteps, several farmers carrying baskets and spades, stumbled down the cliffside, obviously the injured man's companions, one of them yelling as he slid down, "Old Six is hurt. Go fetch the master. Quick." One farmer dashed off, another, hearing Garrett's request for a bandage, frantically tore off a long strip from his clothes. Garrett took it, assessing its thickness and strength. It was barely adequate. He handed it back. "Get a wooden stick. Finger thick, as long as my hand. Place it on his leg, where my fingers are, and tighten the bandage. Is it tight? Good. Turn the stick." The hemp rope creaked. The injured man cried out in agony, held down by his companions. "Don't move. Don't move. Your leg, hey, the bleeding's reduced." "Young sir, impressive." "What young sir? He's a mage." A farmer with sharp eyes spotted the wand at Garrett's sleeve, correcting his companions as one of the farmers, tightening the stick, trembled and nearly fell into the mud. Mage, sir." "Don't move. Hold it tight." Garrett yelled at him. When the man complied, Garrett knelt, felt the far end of the artery to confirm no pulse, then instructed the stick holder, "Grip tightly. Don't move. Loosen the bandage and alert me. Damn it. Without a tourniquet, this makeshift solution would have to do for now." The farmer nodded shakily. Garrett ignored him, directing others to lay the patient flat and remove his clothes. He squatted nearby, questioning the injured man and his companions. How did he fall? Did he come down vertically or roll down horizontally? Which part hit the ground first? Hands, legs, or back? Did he fall face down or face up? The injured man and his companions answered one by one. Garrett got the information he needed, and as the man's clothes were nearly off, he began a thorough examination. No other visible injuries on the body's surface. Abdominal pressing. No significant pain in the upper left abdomen, upper midsection, upper right abdomen. Just as he finished checking, footsteps echoed from the nearby mountain path. Garrett glanced and saw an elderly man, one hand holding a staff, the other leading the farmer who had gone to call for help earlier. The elder sprinted so swiftly that even his deep brown robe billowed behind, easily carrying a hefty man of 180 pounds as if he were weightless. "This old guy's impressive." Garrett silently praised. Around him, the farmers bowed unevenly. "Elder. Elder. Elder, save me. Save me." The injured man struggled. Garrett shouted at him, pressing him down and continuing his examination. "Who are you?" The old man arrived, placing the farmer beside Garrett, leaning over to check the injured man. Without lifting his head, Garrett replied, "Garrett Nordmark." "You're Garrett." The elder's voice fluctuated slightly. Before Garrett could answer, the elder crouched, checking the area around the patient's tourniquet. "You set this up?" "Clever thinking." "All right, step aside now. I'll fix this leg." "He can heal a fracture with a single healing spell?" "He's way better than me." Garrett glanced aside, yet when he saw the elder reaching out, he instinctively dodged, yelling, "Don't move him." The elder paused. Garrett's rebuttal came out in rapid succession. "I haven't finished examining. Do you know if he has any internal injuries?" The elder hesitated. After a moment of silence, he asked, "I've treated people with broken legs. Sometimes the leg heals, but a few days later, they die. Could it be internal injuries?" "It's possible." Garrett murmured. There were many reasons for deaths from falls: internal ruptures, brain damage, or, if luck wasn't on your side, a ruptured aorta. Without seeing the patient, who knew what situation you'd encounter? "How do we check?"